hope that you have seen what I have posted in Google Classroom, right?
Yes, sir.
So if you have not seen, please do look at it. Okay, there are two things. એક પ્રેમચંદનું કફન મૂકેલું છે અને એનું વિડિયો વર્ઝન છે. So both of them are supplementary. Either you can read first or view first. But in any case, you have to do both, reading as well as viewing. If you read and view, you will understand how Premchand is writing, right? And how the director is making changes that help you later to see how cinematic adaptations or television adaptations can change the meaning of the story or can enhance the meaning of the story. Okay. So before we move further, let me show you something on my screen if it is readily available. Otherwise, we move forward. But give me a minute. I want to show you something, and if possible, I want you to hear it as well. Give me a minute. Okay, yeah, got it. So I'm sharing the screen once again, and I want you to respond whether you are able to hear. If you don't hear, don't worry, but you just have to watch it from the beginning till the end. Okay, here it is. If you don't hear anything, don't worry. I don't think there is a voice. I just want you to remember what you see. Don't worry about the reading if you don't understand. If you can't read, don't worry. It's not a long video, but it's interesting. Anybody would like to say something about what they have seen? Let me stop sharing so that we can have a conversation. Anybody? did you see? Or have you seen anything? You can use your chat box.
Haven't seen anything yet, sir.
Carriages and villagers.
Okay, carriages and villagers. Anything else? Okay, let me share it once again with fast forward so that because I want you to understand what does the video tell us. I'll make it very fast, not too much, 2x speed. Okay, wait, okay, not this one. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, where is that video? Okay. Look at the video very carefully, okay? It's going to be very fast forward. If you can take notes, that would be interesting. Blacksmith. Freight carriers. They transport things from one place to the other. Sawmill. And then water. Okay. Let me stop this and come back to you. Now, tell me, what did you see?
So clothing, their markets,
Yes,
areas.
clothes you have seen. Good. Anything else?
Yes. And that the person making tools.
Okay.
Blacksmiths.
Yes, that's
Then there
right.
were carriers,
Yes.
people who transport things.
Okay.
Then things related with water,
Yes.
like daily works.
Okay. And there were notes.
And I think there was something wood cutters, I guess.
Yes. That's
Something like
sawmill. Sawmill. Yes. And in the beginning of the video, the bullock carts, the modes of transport. Okay, this was India in 1930s, right? And this is this was recorded by an Englishman. Interesting, and that's what we are going to talk about today. That how India was in 1930s and even before and after. Because we are going to deal with Premchand's Godan. Sorry, not Premchand's Godan, it's the Shroud, Kafan. Because I love Godan so much, so it comes again and again into my mind. Okay, so the British India, I am not talking of India in 1930, I am talking of British India. Let me make it very clear at this time.
So your voice is echoing.
Okay, my voice is echoing. Is it clear now?
No, sir.
No.
Still echoing?
Now it's better, yes.
No,
it's okay. So I think my laptop has gone mad, run out of battery. So that's the only reason, I think. Okay, so I'm talking of British India. I'm not talking India only. And that means I'm talking of colonial times, which we referred when we try to understand what is Indian writing in English, right? So I'm referring back to the times we discussed earlier. So if you are not sure, please go back to the slides if I have posted. And certainly I will post it in the meantime, like I post videos. Too much work on many fronts, but that's what the focus is. 1857, Mangal Pandey revolted against the British Crown or the East India Company, let's say that, not Crown. So when they realized that this is not going to be manageable, the British Crown took over and they started ruling India. So it was not East Indian administration now, it is British India. So the distinction has to be made very clear that from 1858 onwards, it is British India, not East Indian administration or East Indian Company administration. 1885, I'm referring back again that Indian National Congress was founded where nationalistic leaders and the feelings were encouraged. In 1915, I'm not going to talk too much history, but this is really important because when Premchand writes in 1930, he is writing with all these influences, what we have seen in the video. And this video refers to the British time. So in 1915, Gandhi arrived from South Africa to India, and that is going to change the politics of India forever. In 1919, there was a huge demonstration in Amritsar, you know, Jallianwala Bagh massacre, which people refer again and again, and there is a huge monument where thousands of people were killed. These numbers may be fake, we don't know, because it is the history written by the victorious. So I don't go by these numbers, and one should not go by these numbers. General Dyer ordered an open fire into the mass gathering, the peaceful demonstration by the Sikh community. And hundreds and thousands were killed. And instead of apologizing, like Canadians did in the past, yet we are to receive the apology from the British to the Sikh community and to the Indian community. He was not charged with any criminal charges, and that's where it hurts a lot. It was this incident which changed the way Indian youth was looking at freedom movement. And in 1920, 1922, Gandhi launched a civil disobedience campaign, and which has been somewhat successful. So these were the period in 1920s and 1930s. Remember, from 1914 to 1918, there was World War I, and the World War II was about to begin. Britain introduced a range of measures that gave more and more independence to India. That means Indian scale rule can come and be a part of the British Parliament in India, British Indian Parliament that existed. There are a number of Indians who were eligible to vote, and you know, it's not just you can vote if you become 18. So you have to be eligible to vote. So who can vote was a decisive factor, and that was in the hands of the British Crown. And the number grew. And then there were people who were on council of the viceroy. And British Crown gave good jobs to Indians as ministers or in the government, as a government, Indian civil services. So there were Indian penetration into the government. The government, British Indian government, not the Indian government. So there were Indians and they were looking from a different perspective how India can achieve its independence. However, in 1929, the Great Economic Depression came and it changed the entire economical situations. Again, in 1930, March 12, civil disobedience movement by Gandhi started. And this is where some of the Premchand's writing come in. So this was the time when Britishers were facing lots of protests after Second World War. Protest from the government, protest from the people, protest from the Indian political parties, which were trying to get in their hands the taste of independence. And it was this time when thousands of Indian troops fought for the British Empire in many parts of the world. And it is hearteningly sad to see how British government did not acknowledge for many years that there were thousands of soldiers killed in many parts of the world fighting battle for the empire, for the British Crown. It is recently that they have acknowledged and they have put in the National Archives of UK, BBC history, and they have started to acknowledge it publicly, that there were thousands of Indian soldiers killed in First World War and in Second World War. And even besides these two wars, there were hundreds and millions of soldiers were recruited by the British army to fight for their empire. And it is very interesting to see how the acknowledgement has come. So there was lots of protest and there was lots of anger towards the British Crown. And they demanded freedom. And in response, they sent a commission named Simon Commission, which you have heard it and read it in your history. And it is in this protest to send back this Simon Commission, Lala Lajpat Rai was killed when he was protesting against this commission. And it was during this time that the British government, British Crown, the British Empire wanted to negotiate how and what freedom, to what extent freedom should be given to Indians. And in order to discuss that, they conducted series of roundtable conferences. These are constitutional reforms. The first meeting was held in November 12, 1930, and where they discussed the federal structure. Those who are in political science may understand what it is, but it's a distribution of power. From center to the state or the state to the center. So it's that structure that we are talking about. So the first roundtable conference was a failure because the most important part of the Indian freedom movement, the major chunk was coming from Indian National Congress, was led by Gandhi. And he remained absent. And because Congress representation was not there, the negotiation could not go further. So remember, if you are appearing for your PSC exams or general knowledge exams later in your life, this is a very important feature of Indian history, that Indian National Congress absenteeism in the first roundtable conference, which was held on November 12, 1930, failed to discuss and agree on the federal structure, the distribution of power. The second meeting, the second roundtable conference was held on September 7th, 1931, and it went up to December 1931. So series of the Congress was believing that Congress is India, and this was very interesting rhetoric. And Gandhi believed that all Hindus, including minority, represents political India. Now, you can see the map of India in terms of politics. So what is coming here is very interesting politics from Indian National Congress. And that is all Hindus, whether they are scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, or Hindus, or Sikhs, or Jain, or Buddhist, they all come as Hindu, the larger umbrella term. And that's where the problem started. So the problem was electorates for minority or Muslims. They demanded, and it was thought that separate vote should be given to communities on the religious grounds. Now, this has changed the way the Indian politics was to occur later in time. And this was accepted as communal award. That means separate electorate for reserved category, for people who are from depressed classes or whose number is less. So the reserved constituency in parliament and in state assemblies. What does it mean is this, that SC, ST and OBC and women can have a place of reservation in the politics. And if it is a reserved seat, no general category can apply. That means that only Muslims can vote for Muslim candidates. Only SC candidates can vote for SC candidates. Only OBC women and ST candidates vote for their own candidates. Now, this is very divisive politics, which was played. And this was the reason why Gandhi and Ambedkar did not see each other. And it is said that was Gandhi ready to give separate electorate to the offshoots of Hindu religion and not SC, ST and OBCs? Because he thought that Sikhs do not come under Hindu religion. And it is believed Jains do not come under the Buddhists do not come. These are very controversial religious and political issues. And if you consider them as minorities, SC, ST and OBCs are also considered minorities. So Ambedkar and Gandhi did not see each other on this term. So Gandhi had a pact with Irving, which allowed the communal award, and Gandhi had a pact with Ambedkar, which resulted in Pune Pact. You can read about these conflicts and differences between Gandhi and Ambedkar on Google, and you can find out more about that. But that's not what the focus of the class is. And the third was held in November 17, 1932, where the dominion status was discussed. Now, what do you mean by dominion status? That you remain under crown and you can elect your own representatives. It's like countries like Commonwealth countries like South Africa, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, they are still having Queen as their as a British crown. So they come from that background. So dominion status is that. So it was not acceptable to Indian leaders, and they demanded full independence. Gandhi's Satyagraha movement started in this period, and there were now two paths: Gandhi's path and the path of revolution. This is what the dominions would look like to people like those who accepted the dominions. Now you see the American regions, the Canadian regions, you can see the Australia, the Indians, the New Zealand, there is a South Africa, and there are other countries in the African regions. So these are the 19th century Queen's Dominion, and you can click on the link and to know more about it that is given below. So in British India, this was the time where caste, religion, and gender bias was at its peak, because the people were poor, illiterate, and they were exploited by a rich and powerful section of the society. Caste and class played a very important role in this. So if you can see the exploitation, it is not just exploitation of the religion, it is the exploitation of economic opportunities, social upliftment, social mobility was restricted, a sexual exploitation of the lower classes, including women. So you can see what kind of society, if we have seen the political side, now we can see the economic and social sides of the British India in 1930. So you have a capitalist versus labor class. Migration from rural to the city areas. Because in rural areas, the drought, you have seen the water slide where people were taking water. If there was no water, that means if there is a drought, they are not able to do farming. But the capitalist, the feudalistic, the landlords will ask for the tax. So in order to move away from that, they moved to cities in search of jobs, in search of work. So the migration has happened, has started in this period from rural areas to the city areas. Because industrialization is happening, because the British are seeing the importance of the industries establishing in India, the raw material to be converted here. And if you remember the city called Ahmedabad as the Manchester of India, many mills were established, and the rich were exploiting in this period. And because of this migration, young versus old, the caste and religious factors created lots of conflict, not only in the society, but also in the family. And these conflicts later on appear in the fictional writing that we read. If you come across this Mulk Raj Anand's Untouchable, it talks about that. Raja Rao's Kanthapura talks about that. Even Premchand's writing, we'll see in Kafan, how does it affect these conflicts. It was this time when you move away from rural to city areas, when you leave your place, you try to seek marriages. And this was the time when interclass marriages started to happen. And it was a social reality. People may tell you that Indians do not do that intermarriages, but there are lots of examples in the history of India. And the fiction will give you an idea that how an upper class Brahmin marries the lower class Dalit. You read U.R. Anandamurthy's Samskar, and you get to know that there are interreligious marriages. And though people will not accept, they had not accepted, but it was a reality in time. And they knew what they are doing and the social and religious implications. So whatever the writings we are going to read in Premchand's Kafan, it's an average Indian's life narrative. He may be farmer, he may be laborer, he may be a daily wage earner. It's common man's life. Because that's where the real conflict from the author's point of view can emerge. How they cope with the life in the times of crisis, not only economic crisis, not only the social crisis, but also political and survival crisis. So it was the time of cultural and feudal exploitation. where dharma, religion, and rituals played a very important role. Right? Any questions so far on this? Okay, this is how Premchand saw British India. Poor wanted to raise their voice, and to some extent they were successful as well. But in order to get victory, you need to sacrifice something. And it was always the young ones who sacrificed their life, never the rich ones. It was the lower caste people who sacrificed their lives, not the rich ones, not the upper caste ones. As Premchand is narrating the stories of people, there were intelligent and idealistic young ones who followed Gandhi's principles, old path, with extreme unhappiness. You can see Subhash Chandra Bose. He was not happy with the Gandhi's way of achieving independence, but still they followed strict adherence to the religious values. And that's where the conflict starts. So the Empire Police, the British police, firing on innocent Indians, and you can see the lathi charge videos on YouTube, lots of things. The brutality of the police, though they are British Indian police, but still their ethnicity is Indian. They are just ordering the brutality. General Dyer's massacre is one example. Lala Lajpat Rai's death is one example. That how police brutalism can be seen in the British India. And this is where Gandhi preaches his non-violent ideology. And he succeeds to some extent. But there is a division in the Indian youth and the older generation as well, who do not agree with the Gandhian ideology. And that's not an issue, but that's what Premchand sees during his time. And what is important from his point of view is the hope amidst poverty, brutality, and exploitation of all kinds, that India will get her freedom, that my life would be better. So as a writer, he does not paint that beautiful picture in the writings, but he paints a picture which will give hope to his readers, that there is something good happening. And he may not write directly about that hope. He may write it in illusory forms. He might give you an illusion. You have to read between the lines that how hope is given to the readers. And remember, he is writing in Hindi, and almost all the Hindi reading belt, all the Hindi speakers, they're able to read it. And that's how the writers played a very important role in invoking hope amidst the poverty, brutality, and exploitation. It was the time when materialism was fighting against the socialism. Materialism in the sense that you try to acquire as much wealth as you can. And then socialism in the sense that you try to distribute your wealth equally among the citizens. However, the socialism, I don't know whether it has succeeded or not in distributing wealth of a nation equally to its citizens. It's a very idealistic situation which may result in a dream-like situation. And it is this point where United States of Soviet Russia and its ideology later on comes to different parts of the world. And materialism that brings the capitalistic point of views, which is proposed by the capitalistic country, United States of America. And later on, it results into a Cold War, but not at this time. But it has started, it's a fight between capitalism and socialism. So we really don't know whether there were any communalism. Communalism means riots or riots based on the differences of religion, or was there a presence of communal harmony? In Premchand's writing, it appears that there were differences, but not the differences that we have now based on the religion. And there are a couple of examples that we will read as a part of our Premchand's reading, that what kind of nationalism that he was talking about, what kind of communalism he was talking about. And we'll see from examples that though Hindus and Muslims were having diverse views on their own coexistence, but they coexisted. We will see during this reading of Kafan that how Hindus and Muslims were living together with their differences, and at what point in history this changed their ways. Even at local level, in his Premchand's writing, you will see a presence of communal harmony. And that's where we need to understand what the history has taught us, and how the historians, how the writers have manipulated the facts of history to talk and to divide the communalistic ideas, their agendas, into the life and veins of innocent Indian people. This is Munshi Premchand, known also by his pen name. Munshi Premchand is his pen name. His official name, his original name is Dhanpat Rai Srivastava. Born on 31st July 1880, and he died on 8th October 1936. These are my favorite works: Gift of a Cow, Godan, and Karmabhumi. Whatever I have said, whatever Premchand has seen during his lifetime, these two works reflect the kind of British India, and one needs to read them. These are available in Hindi and perhaps in Gujarati as well, and you can see the translation in English as well. These are one of the gems of Hindi literature, and one should always try to first read what's written in your own languages. If you don't know Hindi language, you always can switch to English or the regional language that you know. So I would recommend you to read and make a list of books where you have this too as one of your included list in the reading material. Okay. Anything from your side, I would be happy to answer at this point. If you have any questions, we can discuss it right now, because we have less than 1 minute, and surely we can discuss now. Okay. Somebody, yeah. Okay, thank you very much.